Welcome back. Border cities are preparing for a potential new wave of migration now that President Biden moves to end a major Trump-era border policy. The Arizona governor criticizing the administration for failing to consult with local officials in the Copper State. Let's bring in now one of those leaders, the mayor of Yuma, Arizona, Douglas Nicholls, to discuss how this would impact Yuma and other border towns just like it. Mr. Mayor, thank you for being here. I want to ask you, obviously on Friday, the Biden administration lifting the Remain in Mexico policy specifically. How does that impact you?
Well, right now what that looks like is it's going to just exacerbate an already overworked system. So for Yuma, the key is the greater border and DHS system to make sure people, as they're interdicted, are moved through. Well, when you overload that system, that means more people are going to be staying in Yuma area longer, and then they're going to end up releasing people into our community, which just began last Monday.
Let's talk about that release. So what exactly are the Border Patrol and ICE officials doing in terms of catching and releasing? And what is the greatest threat facing Yuma with that?
Well, what happens is when they interdict people, they have so much time, 72 hours, in order to move them through the system and get them out from the Yuma facility onto the ERO facility in the Phoenix area. And when they can't meet that requirement, then they end up having to release them into the community after they've been processed. And so we're talking anywhere from 2 people a day up to 40 people a day that have been released this last week. And there's no shelter system, there's no resources provided for them, or whether there should be, that's, I guess, part of the question. But there's nothing for them to then figure out how to get to where they're ultimately going.
And Mr. Mayor, do you know if those being released have been tested for COVID?
They have not. So they do, as part of the regular protocol, a medical screening. And part of that, they ask the same questions you'd ask when you go to your doctors. Do you have a fever? Have you been exposed? Those kind of things. And so we all know how effective those really are. So an actual test is not happening at all within DHS when it's before they're released into Yuma.
How worried are you that this specifically will increase your COVID cases?
Well, it's definitely something that we've struggled with as a community, is COVID overall. And so anytime you add an unknown element in that could potentially be bringing even more potential exposure to the community, as well as just those individuals that are coming across that may need to have that additional medical care, taxes our local medical care system. And we only have one hospital, and they do a great job of addressing our population, but they're not built for a large transit population either. So it could really end up creating a third wave for us here in the Yuma area.
And let me ask you about, I saw from your Yuma, Arizona border sector chiefs put out something that just a few days ago, some 8 Mexican nationals were busted bringing in nearly 150 pounds of meth.
Right. That happens frequently, and there is really a correlation between how busy our Border Patrol agents get and how frequent the drug smugglers operate along the border. I don't know how coordinated it is, but it is very frequent. So when we pull our Border Patrol agents from that interdiction and that capture part for the drugs, then to satisfy the need we have on the immigrant side, that just opens the door even wider for more drug trafficking through the area.
Mayor Nicholls, I want to end here sort of where we began, and that was mentioning that your governor criticized the Biden administration for not engaging local leaders like yourself. So my question is, has anyone from the Biden administration sought your counsel on what they should be doing with regards to immigration? And if not, what would you tell them?
No, they have not. What I would tell them is there needs to be some common sense to this. If you're going to change the dynamic of a community, you really need to have that community engaged. For instance, a community of our size, we're roughly 200,000 people. We don't have a network of NGOs that or nonprofits set up that could really address this situation. So that is common for most small communities along the border. So there should be a prohibition of releasing in smaller communities. The releases should be happening in communities that have some sort of nonprofit set up to address those humanitarian concerns that are owned by the migrants, but also don't create additional humanitarian concerns for the communities that are being released into. So that's a basic step that'd be important, and there's so much more to talk about.
Such a good point. We have to leave it there. I could talk to you all day. Mayor Douglas Nicholls.